When I think of underrated 3DS games, Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology come first to mind. Releasing to the West in February of 2018, it was near the end of the 3DS lifecycle. This remake of the cult classic DS title was pretty much overlooked. Thus, if you have the misfortune of missing out on this title, I hope in this video review, I'll be able to convince you to get this game. Radiant Historia tells one of the best stories in any video game I played in recent memory, with a very strong and memorable opening, setting up for interesting mysteries and plot points to be unraveled throughout the entire game. The story tone is exclusively very serious, diving into very mature themes and story beats. This is a stark contrast to his other 3DS JRPG contemporaries like Bravely Default and Dragon Quest VIII, where they usually employ a more over-the-top, non-serious Japanese style that feels mostly light-hearted. This tone is really accentuated through its setting, scenario, and writing. The game takes place amidst an ongoing war between two nations, Granok and Atlus, each fighting for precious heritable land as the continent suffers from a plague, where land is slowly turning to sand. You play as Stock, a skilled agent of the Special Intelligence Unit in Atlus. I really like Stock as a protagonist, as he really differs from many of the other JRPG protagonists out there. He isn't some inexperienced teenage boy destined for greatness and setting out on a grand adventure. Instead, he's a military veteran that is very dependable even from the very start. With a stoic and calm personality, Stock rarely has any outbursts and is just a really down-to-earth guy. In a sense, Stock felt human and didn't really feel like a typical anime main character. Going on a tangent about characterization, the other side characters and subplot featured are also written really well. Most side characters have deeper motivations and ideals than we initially thought. That even goes for antagonists and villains as well. In this world, nothing is truly black and white. The other reason why I love the plot has to do with its time traveling and multiverse storytelling. Stock is able to time travel with the help of a magical tome known as the White Chronicle. This leads to very interesting pacing and story progression. At one point in the early stages, Stock will have to make a pretty major decision. The plot will basically split into two separate timelines, the standard and alternate history. As you play through one timeline, progression will often be halted, and you need to play through the other timeline in order to progress through the story. For example, if you get stuck in one timeline because you haven't learned an ability from the other timeline, which will result in bad endings in this timeline. Thus, you need to acquire said ability from the other timeline. As such, the pacing feels very fragmented, as one has to keep jumping between the two timelines in order to progress through the overarching plot. Back when I originally played this title, I was still in the army, so the fragmented story structure worked really well back then, as I only have a few hours in between my duties and rest, where I can easily find good breakpoints to start and stop playing. However, replaying the title for this review, I found that the fragmented structure can feel a little bit tiring and formulaic at times, especially considering the other side quests and optional nodes to tackle, which often requires you to jump through multiple nodes in the past and future just to complete one quest. It's worth mentioning in this remake, they have also added a third timeline known as Possible History. This is not really a full timeline, it's more like many bite-sized fragmented multiverses that shows the characters in what-if scenarios. I love this new added content, as it flushes out some characters while also providing more interesting and intriguing character moments. Just like the original two timelines, this also serves the gameplay as well, as some of these requires jumping between different nodes from all three timelines in order to finish. The gameplay is also equally worth praising. In this game, there are no random encounters. Enemies shows up on the map and will initiate combat when contacted. You are able to hit them as well, freezing their movement for a while, granting you the option on whether you want to engage in battle or not. What really stands out about Radiant Historia gameplay is the combat system. Enemies are positioned in a 3x3 grid, with closer square to the party dealing and receiving more damage. You also gain access to moves like push assault, left assault, which will allow you the ability to reposition the enemies. By stacking the enemies together in one grid, all subsequent attacks will be performed on all enemies together, resulting in more efficient use of your resources. The other critical mechanic being turn orders. In Radiant Historia, you are able to change the turn orders with anyone, including the enemies. The only drawback being that the party members will be in a vulnerable state, where he or she is more prone to critical hits as well as status effects. This effect will last until his turn comes. Combine this with the grid system, a lot of time you'll be swapping turns with the enemies to get as many consecutive turns as possible, which will allow you to use the first few turns to reposition everyone on one grid, then proceed to deal a ton of damage to everyone at the same time. Oh yeah, not to forget, the more you attack consecutively, the more combo you rack out, with each higher level increasing the damage output. This forms the basic strategy for the entire game. Of course, there are more mechanics as you play more, stuff like larger enemies occupying more than one grid space, your party skills, your enemy skills, status effect, buffs and debuffs, and whatnot. The repositioning, turn orders, and combo mechanic never got old. It is such a simple yet fun system. It kind of reminds me of Tetris in a way, where positioning and comboing is key.
How about this? Fire! Take this! Fire!
As Radiant Historia is originally a DS game, the graphics can feel pretty lacking at times. This is especially the case in terms of the environment and overworld. I also feel that this game also suffers from uninspired level design. The levels and environment that you get access to feels really bland. However, it really is fine. At the end of the day, it was a DS game, and you don't really get a lot of exploring to do anyway. I do feel that the sprites are pleasing to look at, especially the new character arts. I know it's a matter of opinion, but I really prefer the new character art than the old ones. The soundtrack is really good, with themes that have still stuck with me even months after I finished the game. However, it is a pretty small soundtrack, so it can feel a little bit repetitive and lacking variety at times. However, the best part about the presentation has to do with the newly added voice acting. As I said earlier, the plot is told with a very serious tone, so if the voice direction is off by any bit, the mood and atmosphere established will kind of be ruined. And I'm glad to report the voice acting is really good. Each actor fit the character they are portraying like a glove.
If it's a simple border crossing, wouldn't we just pass through the sand fortress? I don't see the need to pick up any special intel for that.
And if I told you that the sand fortress is on the verge of being recaptured by the enemy?
Is that true?
Because of this one edition, I can't imagine picking up the original DS game to play in 2021 and beyond, as I feel without the stellar voice acting, you'll be missing out on a lot. To summarize, Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology tells an incredibly well-written plot with great setting and characters. The time traveling and multiverse concept is executed really well, resulting in interesting and engaging story progression and gameplay. Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology also features one of the best turn-based combat system that is easy to understand yet remains deep and fun throughout the entire game. The new addition in this remake, such as voice acting, new character art, as well as a whole new timeline, makes this the definitive version to play Radiant Historia. The negatives are environment art and overworld, bland and uninspired level design, as well as it can get kind of tiring moving through all the nodes, especially as you try to complete all the side quests available. With all that being said, I'm giving Radiant Historia Perfect Chronology a 10 out of 10. As someone who have put in close to 55 hours of playtime and almost experienced everything this game has to offer, I can clearly say this is one of my favourite JRPG games I've ever played. There just really isn't much to complain about this game. It just delivers on so many fronts. There's a reason why this game is so high up in my top 15 3DS games list. It really is the complete package. I highly recommend all JRPG fans to try out this game and make sure to get this remake version. And if you want to hear my opinion on another 3DS JRPG with good combat system, you can click here to see my review of Bravely Default. So long guys, so long.